So how's it going, my comic chat army? We're here today with Nguyen, the creator of. Do you want to list the books off?
Sure. I am the creator of Pablo the Gorilla, Jupiter the Space Pug, co-creator of Siren Song and official Inktober project with Andy Nordval, co-creator of Battle Grapple with Michael Tanner, of Junior Braves of the Apocalypse for Oni Press, and also co-creator of Retro with Aaron Lindenthaler, which we just funded last year on Kickstarter. Battle Grapple Rebel also just funded last year on Kickstarter. So those two books are out now, and will be traveling with me to shows.
And he worked on Yasmin, right?
I'm sorry?
Scout? Isn't the book called Yasmin? Or
Just
Snake
Me.
Presents
Yeah,
Jessamine?
Steak presents Just Me. So I did the variant cover, one of the variant covers for it, specifically for a shop out your way. I don't know if you've been there, or you may be more than familiar with them, but I did the variant cover store exclusive for the Collective. Shout out to Danny Morales, Travis Gibb for helping hook that up, and the whole Orange Cone production team, and David Byrne, Francesca Fantini, Jonathan Hedrick, all great people. So that whole team.
Yeah, know about the Collective. I just haven't made my way there yet.
Okay, well, if you get a chance, go down there, tell them I sent you, and say hi to Danny and crew. They're fantastic out there. They run a great shop, and they always have fantastic exclusives and products tied in with indie creators, major pubs. It's a really cool shop, and I look forward to heading out there one day myself and checking the shop out.
Yeah, I mean, have you ever been to Florida before?
Went to Disney World like maybe a decade ago, but never got a chance to like go outside of Orlando and explore the local scene. When we went, we were essentially just in what is Disney World. And then we went and saw Universal, but that was it. I didn't get to go see any comic book shops. Usually, if I go to a con, for example, I like to stop in the town and explore the town. If I get a chance to visit some of the local comic book shops and see what they're about.
Sweet. So what cons are you going to this year?
Not too many. Right now on my schedule coming up is going to be, I have an event at the shop out here called the Comic Book. We're doing Asian Invasion, which is to spotlight AAPI creators out here. So we're going to be doing that on the 4th. 17th through the 18th, I'm going to be up in Modesto, California, doing an event called Latinx Comic Arts Festival, which is to highlight Latino creators. I'm just a guest there, so hopefully I'll get a chance to help spotlight them and interview them and show what their work is all about. And then I'll be at WonderCon, which is San Diego Comic-Con's little sister convention in Anaheim. So that will be the 24th through the 26th. Then I'm slated for Comic-Con Revolution Ontario, which is out in the Inland Empire here in California. That's sometime in May. I want to say it's the 18th through the 21st or something like that. And then I will have probably Rose City Comic Con on my list, and maybe LA Comic Con later down the line. So we'll see.
Does LA Comic Con or the big Comic Con down there? Does it let indie comic creators come? Like, can you get a table?
Yeah. So have you done cons before?
Yeah, I've been to cons, but I haven't been to like the big one to San Diego or New York or nothing. I've been to like little ones.
Yeah, so it's always a mix, and they curate you. So last year, for example, was probably my heaviest con year. I'm also doing Heroes Con, so I'll kind of be out your way in Charlotte, North Carolina. But yeah, all the major cons, as far as I know, they feature indie creators all the way up to the major pub creators. They like to get a mix, even people who do crafts, and people who are just print artists. They just concentrate on making artwork and selling those as prints. So it's a variety of creators that are at cons, and it's always a lot of fun, whether you're attending or whether you're there as an exhibitor, I feel like. And you'll also find, vendors that are just shops. There are vendors that I went to a con where they sell specialty chocolates. I don't know if you've seen that. So there are people that, make food and make all sorts of stuff, and they're just out to showcase their work because it's somehow tied into pop culture. Which is what we're all about. We're here to celebrate pop culture and celebrate the stories and the art of our medium. So, hopefully we get more and more people involved in that and love it. And I always love seeing kids at these events, especially kids that are really excited to make comics. That's the greatest thing. I think that helps to foster our medium and our industry and what we do to see that joy. And they have like such crazy ideas. And when you see like a 9 or 10-year-old come and be like, "Oh, I made a comic," and actually bring it and show it to you, it's a trip. And that's the future of what we are doing. We're trying to tell stories, trying to show it through images, and that could be the prelude to a movie or an animated show, like whatever it is out there. And I think us being the Indycomics, that's like the hotbed, the incubator of these ideas.
How is indie comic creators out there in Los Angeles?
We have a huge scene. I'm part of a couple groups, one of which is the Sketchy Bug group, which is one of the largest comic book creator collectives out here on the West Coast, and specifically in Los Angeles. We have friends, another group called Accidental Aliens. They're based out in San Diego, California. Shout out to Scott Lost and his team out there. But yeah, it's a fantastic scene out here. We're really, really proud of the work that comes out here, and just a ton of really amazing people. And you get to meet just some wonderful people, wonderful creators, and that goes not only on the indie scene but also in the big pub scene. So we get to interact with them as well and see what their work is all about, and really just celebrate. I feel like that's what conventions are about. It's just celebrating what we do.
So where can anybody pick up your books?
Currently, my books are available at a few shops nationwide. So you can find some of my stuff at the Collective. You can find my work out here at the Comic Bug, Heidi Ho Comics, Fisk Comics, Endgame Comics, Space Cadets Collectibles with Commander Jen King out in Houston. So I've gotten my books into some shops, which is fantastic. We appreciate the support anytime, I'm sure you can imagine, as an indie creator. But you can also find me online. So if you just Google, most people know me either by my name or as Winning It, which is just my last name, add an INGIT to that. It should pop up. You'll see my Etsy store, and then most of my books are on there. And then I've also worked, for example, with Travis Gibb and Jerome Gagnon with Orange Cone Productions. So I'm in all the Cthulhu Invades books. So shout out to them, as well as Holiday Spirits. And Holiday Spirits 2, I believe, is just dropping right now to backers.
Sweet. Nice. We know a lot of the same people.
Yeah, I think if you're in it and you do it enough and your network grows and grows and you do a lot of shows, you're bound to meet the same people, especially if they're, just really wonderful, creative people. And they just got a positive vibe. I think you kind of gravitate towards those people and you look to support them. And that's really all you can kind of do in what we do. And hopefully, we just keep boosting good people to the forefront and help, their stories and their art shine.
So how long have you been making comics?
I have been officially, I guess, in this industry since 2017. I got my first solo artist alley table in 2018. So Rose City Comic Con was the first time I'd ever tabled on my own, but I was a part of San Diego Comic Con in 2017. Special shout out and thanks to Matt and John of Geekscape for allowing Andy and me to be at their table with our official Inktober project, Siren Song. So yeah, that was kind of our foray into it, even though that wasn't a comic book. It was, an Inktober project. And then I was lucky enough to fund my comic Pablo the Gorilla in 2019. And, the fact that Dustin Nguyen was able to be a part of that and do the variant cover is just insane. Like, I still think it's nuts to this day that a 2-time Eisner winner was like, hey, let me do a cover for you and give you a little bit of a boost. So I will forever be indebted to Dustin, and shout out to him, and be sure to pick up his comics, which are out currently. He's working on a new one right now called Little Monsters with Jeff Lemire. So I think they just wrapped up the second volume of that book, and they may have collected it, the first 2 volumes, into an omnibus hardcover. So if anybody out there is interested, definitely give that book a look at. It's fantastic, as well as Descender, Ascender, Robin and Batman, Little Gotham, all his work.
What advice would you give to new creators that want to get started and making comics?
I think the biggest hurdle, man, is just making a book. I got started. I left my job with the Rand Corporation. Oh my God, that's a little over a decade ago.
Mm.
And at that point, it was like, oh, I want to make comics. I want to know how to do this. And I was like, I'll just put in the work, and eventually I'll get to a point where I'm good enough to like try out to make comics. And along the way, like I said, Dustin Nguyen has been an important part of my life, just as a friend and as a mentor, in terms of like me showing up and him knowing who I was, because I loved buying sketches from him, and I just loved seeing his work and supporting him. And he would follow me and say, "Hey, I see your artwork. Like, are you here?" Like every convention I would go and see him, he started asking if I was there and if I had work. And then got to the point where I was like, oh, that's it. Like as a creator, that's all we got to do is just constantly put out work. And I think that's the hardest hurdle for any creators. Like you have to get over that self-doubt and just realize, you just got to jump off the cliff at some point in time and take that dive and learn how to fly on your own. And I feel like the other thing that people stumble on is getting it right, getting it perfect. Sometimes it's not about that. It's just about getting the work out. And I think if you have that in mind, you're going to find, if you have the will, you're going to find that way and you're going to succeed. And you're going to find your audience. And that's the other important thing, is finding your audience. Not everybody is going to love what you do. I'm not everybody's cup of tea, personally. Like people will come up to me, people have had some issues with what I do, may have issues with what I do, may not like the art, may not like the stories that I'm involved with, may not like creators that I'm involved with. And that's okay. You don't have to please everybody, but if you find people that love what you do, keep doing what you're doing, get better at it, and get them to come back and support you. And it's always amazing to see people come back. I see the same faces, show in every year, showing up, and it warms the heart. It's like, oh man, you came back because you liked that. And they're like, yeah. So my biggest issue right now is people always ask, when is the next issue of Pablo coming out? And I'm working at it. I'm really trying hard to get that done, as well as finish a card set, my new card set for Marvel Upper Deck. So we'll see how that goes.
Sweet. News. Where can people get news about what you're doing?
I am on all social media, as far as I know, all the major social media under Winning It. So if you're following me on Instagram, on TikTok, Twitter, Facebook at Winning It, that's where you'll catch most of the news. My website is the same. I've trademarked Winning It. Like I said, my last name is the most common Vietnamese last name. I believe 65 to 70% of Vietnamese have it, which is Nguyen. Add INGIT to that, Winning It, and that's how you can find me and find news about what I'm doing, as well as follow outlets like Orange Cone Productions, Travis Gibb. You can find him at Jester, LOU, Jester Lou, or Jerome is at Jerome Colors and Letters, or Letters and Colors, I believe. And those are two good guys. My buddy Aaron, who I did retro with, you can find him at Mr. Jump Cut, which is MR Jump Cut. He's an editor. He's Emmy nominated. He worked on shows like Project Runway, Real Housewives, a bunch of shows like that. So yeah, just keep in the loop. And I always try to share people, and I always try to share creators that I think are doing really cool things, or that are just really good friends. And the other group that I'm a part of, which I don't think I've talked about enough, is the Comic Art Professional Society, which is it's founded by Mark Vanier and Sergio Aragones and Don Rico. That's also a great organization. So if you're a comic book professional out there, we're one of the two major groups, the other group being the National Cartoonist Society. So look to network, look to join groups like that that'll help foster and build your network and your skills, and that have people that you can reach out to and talk to and learn from, which is always a great thing to do.
So, dead or alive, who would you like to make a comic book with?
Dead or alive? Oh my God, there's too many people I think I would like to make a comic book with. I would love to be. I've always talked about. I would love to be in the room just to talk to Jack Kirby, because I feel like that when we lost him as a kid, I always wanted to go to Comic-Con, and I didn't get a chance until I was an adult. And I just remember like Jack Kirby was like such an integral part of being at Comic-Con, right? Like you're like, oh, the man, the king is there. And that's a guy I think I would have loved to have sat next to and just like picked his brain and asked him questions. And I've been lucky enough to, like be on stage with Jim Lee, which is nuts. And I don't even know if Jim Lee knows who I am. But I've asked him enough questions where I feel like every now and then he brings up I guess we're going to talk about working on backgrounds, because I'd always ask him questions about working on backgrounds, because, we all know drawing Batman or drawing Superman, but, the man spends a lot of time doing background stuff too. And that adds to the story and adds to the field. So I felt like that was a great thing to ask him. So yeah, being able to like talk to artists like Jim or Brian Stelfreeze is an incredible creator to meet and get portfolio reviews from. I imagine he's probably swamped right now, but he's one of those guys. Like anybody you ask out there, if you talk to Mark Brooks or Ed McGuinness, they'll tell you Brian Stelfreeze is one of those guys that if he has the time and he can spare it and give you advice, that's the man.
All right, so if you would work with Jack Kirby, would you make a new character with him or expand on something he's already done?
Oh man, that's fascinating. I think for me, it would be more about learning, what his thought process is in terms of storytelling and like page layouts and, panel layouts and how he fills the panel. And obviously we get some of that, from critics, scholars. You can see that. If you're a fan and you read his comics, you see it. But I think to get it direct from the source, whether I'm sitting doing inkings, doing finishing, like whatever he would ask of me if he was around, I would saddle up and try to learn from him. So it wouldn't even be about creating a character. It would just be about absorbing information.
Okay. Do you do Kickstarters?
Yeah. So I've been a part of 20 Kickstarter campaigns. The very first one I was a part of failed. I personally believe if it only asked for a comic, it would have made it, but it was a huge ask for a very ambitious project, and we learned a lot from that. And then since then, I've been part of just successful campaigns, one after another, and I've been very thankful for that. So yeah, I've been part of books like Cthulhu is Hard to Spell from Wannabe Press with Russell Nolte, the Cthulhu Invade series with Orange Cone Productions, as well as their Holiday Spirit series. I obviously Retro was a campaign on Kickstarter. Pablo the Gorilla was a campaign on Kickstarter. I've helped people out with pinups. For example, Cannibal on Mars from Bloodline Studios, Bloodline Comics, as well as their book. I was on their very first Nightmare Theater book. So yeah, I've had the honor and the pleasure and privilege of being a part of some amazing campaigns out there on Kickstarter. I believe in the platform. I love the platform. I support and back a lot of comics on the platform, which is kind of a problem because I feel like that's a lot of where my commission money goes. But yeah, Kickstarter, crowdfunding, we didn't have this years ago. Like this has changed the game. This has changed the landscape of comics in the last, I would say, like 8 years at least, like 5 to 8 years. We've seen Indiegogo, crowdfunders starting right now. Zoop is another platform out there that's great. Shout out to those guys. But we're watching essentially, I think, what is the golden age of indie comics right now. Just like they're crushing the big pubs, like people are coming for indie comics because they want new content, new art, new stories. And I love it when you see these people come out, these fans that are fervent about indie books, and they pick it up and they read voraciously. And you get towns like, shout out to Baltimore Comic Con, shout out to Portland, Rose City Comic Con. Like these towns consume books. It's not even about just the art or like, buying tchotchkes or anything like that. Like they're buying books and they're reading them. Same thing, Charlotte, with Heroes Con, Charlotte, North Carolina, that crowd, buys books and they love it. And that's what we love to see. And that's the thing I believe we need to foster in this industry is get, kids, more young people involved in comics. And there's a whole discussion about manga versus comics, Western comics. It's like manga are comics. They're Japanese comics, and we're seeing a lot of shine and love for manga right now. And shout out to mangakas and those creators because they're doing something incredible. They're bridging a gap, a cultural gap. They're helping foster and breed more interest in the medium, and I feel like that can only serve to benefit everybody.
All right. Is there anything you want to say before we go?
I don't know. I hope if you don't know who I am and you're watching this or listening to this, you come and find me and see what I do. And hopefully, every show I do, I try to create a friends list to help introduce people to other creators that I personally meet or have been, kind to me in some way or have given me advice. And I try to share those people out as well. So I hope you go and find those people and support them. And yeah, the landscape of comics right now is just amazing. So if you love comics, even if you don't know that much about comics, I've talked to people. We can pitch you on any book. I always tell people the only things I currently don't have in my repertoire is I haven't done any romance books and I haven't done any Western books. But if you love sci-fi books, if you love horror, if you love drama, if you love wrestling, if you love space, anything like that, come find me. I'm sure I can find something in my selection of comics and books that I've been a part of to help bring you into the fold and introduce you to comics. And like I said, Nightmare Theater, a fantastic book that I've been a part of, was picked by Comic Book Resources as the #1 book to get at LA Comic Con in 2019, I believe. And that's just a top tier book, and it's a joy and a privilege to have people invite you to be a part of these projects. So I hope if you're listening out there, just come find me. And if you don't know anything about comics, I hope I can introduce you to some fantastic stuff. And if you do, I hope you enjoy what I do.
All right. Thank you for taking the time to come talk with me.
Thanks for having me, man. This is a pleasure. I'm glad we finally get to virtual meet, and then hopefully we'll get to meet soon in person.
What? You mean you haven't subscribed to Comicchatauthority? Oh, come on. Subscribe already. What are you waiting for? It's no big deal. Man, don't forget to tell him to hit that like button. Yeah, that too. Just subscribe.